Good evening. All right, good evening. We'll go ahead and get into it. My name is Jarrin Jackson. I am the America First candidate in the Oklahoma Republican runoff for State Senate District number 2. You can call me right now, 918-845-9555. You can find more information about me at my website if you want to participate, help donate. We'd always appreciate that. I do these streams at 7 p.m. Central. We do them all across the platforms that we can, so we have to censor the truth, which is unfortunate, but this evening we're going to be speaking about education and health freedom. Education and health freedom, we're going to be covering the topic, and then we can take questions and comments and concerns. I saw an article a couple minutes ago saying this, that in D.C. schools will expel students who choose not to get the shot. And again, I'm not going to say the words because this is the day and age of online text censorship. Pull quote from this article reads, "No student shall be admitted by a school unless the school has certification of a immunization for that student or the student is exempted. Students can get exemptions if a parent or guardian shows up, and it's all other kind of stuff." So that made me ask the question, as we are getting back into the back-to-school season here in Oklahoma, what is the Oklahoma perspective, and what would I, as a state senator, do to support what's going on, or to change what's going on, or to try to reframe what's going on? So we're going to be covering that today. So the three issues are: what does Oklahoma currently have in place for parents and students with respect to the shot, the mask, and all these other things? What would I do as a state senator? And then we'll also reference the basis, like the foundational basis of our country and thinking about stuff, because there's a twist to this. I think we need to be considering Big Pharma whenever we talk about this conversation. We cannot let them off the hook. So real fast, we go to the Oklahoma website. Oklahoma Education, it's got a FAQ website, frequently asked questions. Can a school district adopt a mask requirement despite the provisions of Senate Bill 658? 658 was passed last year, state law. Yes, the Honorable Natalie Mai filed an injunction blocking it for all sorts of different legal reasons. So yes, a school district can adopt a mask requirement, can adopt some type of compelled behavior. The good news is, from the health freedom perspective, this is the same website. It says, if a district adopts a mask mandate for students, staff, and visitors, must it provide exemptions? The answer is yes. The written order enjoining enforcement of Senate Bill 658 requires that any mask mandate must allow religious, medical, personal exemptions for students. This is analogous to the exemptions provided in the state's immunization laws. Apply equally to people who have had the shot and not have had the shot. And it goes on to talk about Title VII, disabilities, all this other kind of stuff. So I wanted to recap. That is what Oklahoma has right now. Again, you can call in with your questions, comments, concerns, 918-845-9555 after we get done talking. So that's what we got right now in Oklahoma. I want to examine what would I do as a state senator. I believe that health freedom is a paramount issue because I believe it is in conjunction with this. I believe this is a big part about what's going on, and I believe that health freedom is the issue that parents, patriots, people who love freedom, people who want to defend the Constitution have to be very knowledgeable about what people are saying in public, what they are saying about what they want to do, what the plan is. And so health freedom, we got to get back to first principles, in the Latin principium. How do we first respond or think about health in the country? The very first thing that we think about, that I think about, is we go to Scripture, Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. This is how I think. Genesis chapter 1, verse 6. And let us make man in our image, of our one likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over creeping thing that creepeth on the earth. Verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created him. Male and female created him, he, them. God made you, God made me, God made all people. The Declaration speaks to that. The Creator God, endowed by rights, by our Creator, all men are created equal. So the premise for all health is that life comes from God. He creates it at conception, which is why we defend it in the womb at the very beginning. So all laws need to reflect that order. If they don't reflect that order, then they reflect some other order. That's a topic and a discussion for a different time. For health legislation here, the Constitution doesn't speak about any kind of medical provision. So the federal government, from my perspective, the federal government, you can look all throughout Article 1, there's no provision for health or medical considerations or anything like that. So from my perspective, from the Constitution's perspective, the federal government was not empowered with the ability to have authority or power to regulate, legislate, administer, or otherwise compel medical decisions or anything thereof. We'll get to that in a second, but clearly the Constitution does not have provision for the federal government to be involved in your individual health. So by default, that kicks it back to the states. Oklahoma has laws on the books that are very protective of health freedom, and that's good. We want to keep that. But I want to go on offense. My perspective is an America First perspective. I am the America First candidate in the Republican runoff in Oklahoma State Senate District number 2. And from health freedom perspective, I think that means we have to go after the system and after the structure of Big Pharma. Here's how I'd like to do that. Looking at the 14th Amendment, you can look at Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. Let me bring that. I don't have it clipped. Excuse me, folks. I don't have it clipped. 14th Amendment, Section 1 says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, that's me, you, if you're an American, are citizens of the United States and subject to the states wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. There's a lot to unpack there. Let me try to simplify, and you can research and check me on this if you want to afterwards or not. The 14th Amendment was 1868. It was a response to the Civil War. It was reducing things down to the bare minimum. The bare minimum is we're not going to take away from anybody, regardless of what they look like, where they're from, where they live. We're not going to take anything away from them. Another perspective, though, is that the 14th Amendment says no state shall limit this. What the states were doing with slavery was they were creating monopolies on labor. Follow me here. The states were having monopolies on labor because they were enslaving other people. So whenever you got rid of slavery, 13th Amendment, they abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment says you states cannot have any monopolies. And the function of the monopoly was to violate the specific right that the 14th Amendment identifies, which is no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, property without the due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection thereof. States were having monopolies on the plantations, and the plantations were functioning as the controlled labor force that was competing and depriving everybody of their rights. Slaves were deprived the rights to their own labor, their ability to participate in commerce and benefit and receive the fruit of their industry. But also the people who weren't slaves, the free citizens, were competing, their wages were competing against the monopoly of slaves. You probably never thought of it like that, but that's the intent of the amendment. The intent of the amendment is to recognize that states cannot enter into monopolies. So extrapolating from that, we have an anti-monopolistic paradigm in the Constitution, which brings me to Big Pharma. Big Pharma, the people that make, manufacture, produce the shots, are given federal immunity. Now remember, Article 1 of the Constitution does not allow the federal government to participate or regulate health. So why is the federal government able to grant immunity to companies that manufacture drugs? That they do, I believe, is a violation of the Constitution. that they are now participating in monopoly. See, you and I can't make this. We have to go through the regulatory process. We've got to go through the FDA process. We have to go through all the processes to get a drug to market, right? See all this regulation that the feds are doing? You see all of this regulatory activity that's not granted to them in the Constitution, and yet it's functioning as what? A monopoly. We have antitrust laws. You can get into that, but the thing I want to talk about here is there's a British case law. It's Darcy versus Allen from 1603. It's American jurisprudence, or excuse me, it's English common law. It's a landmark precedent. It goes back to early England, 1603, where they basically said we don't want the government to set up and function monopolies. The corrupt British royalty. No change, right? The corrupt British royalty were establishing monopolies all over. This person would do the hay, this person would do the lumber, this person would do the manufacturing of the wagons or whatever. And so they had state-run monopolies. And I think it was the Tudor dynasty, 1603. It's Darcy versus Allen. It set up this idea called we don't want monopolies. And so Western civilization, following thereafter, has a very anti-monopoly streak. And this informed American common law, American jurisprudence, and it informed our founders. And so America's founders did not want monopolies, which is why, if you go to Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, the only monopoly the federal government is allowed to participate in is to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to the respective writings and discoveries. The only time that the federal government can participate in protecting what would be considered a monopoly is if it's the intellectual property or production of art or science of an individual. We have gone well beyond that. And so the federal government is not only allowed to not participate in healthcare, it's not only not allowed to allow monopolies, given British common law 1603, Darcy versus Allen, but you now extrapolate that into the 14th Amendment, where no state shall grant the ability or opportunity for a monopoly to be set up. You have right now working the constitutional precedent, and I argue the opportunity to go after Big Pharma's immunity. The federal government should not be involved in healthcare. The federal government doesn't have the authority or the power to legislate in healthcare. The federal government has built into it an anti-monopolistic paradigm, and the federal government is protecting and making sure that no states can sanction or, to build no state can make a monopoly. Now, this might be wonky, but think about what it really gets at. Everybody right now subjected to the shot, if there's any response to the shot that the people who made the shot don't want, the people who made the shot can't be legally taken to court. I want to change that based on all the things that I've talked about, based on all the perspective. Now, this is what you can do. If you're in the area, you can vote for me, get me in there, and we'll run this legislation. There's complete opportunity, and I'll be specific. I keep going back to this. Dobbs v. Jackson, the Supreme Court ruling that just came out in June, set the precedent for the era of unfettered state sovereignty. Justice Clarence Thomas said that if it's not specifically stated in the Constitution, it is to the states. And so as a state senator, much of my time will be looking at what the federal government does, stacking it up with the Constitution, and then using the Supreme Court precedent, promoting an originalist perspective. And then I'll say, you can't do that. We're going to legislate against it. Now, of course, it requires leadership. It can't just be me. There's got to be other people to do it. But this is the type of perspective I'm going to bring. It's the perspective I have. If you're a voter in the area, you can certainly vote for me on August 23rd. I'd ask for that support. If you're around the area, get people involved. Let's open this up, 918-845-9555. Ultimately, I want people who are injured by immunities, or people who are injured by I have to censor what I say. I want people who have had adverse things happen to them as a result of companies that receive federal protections, unconstitutional protections, anti-Western civilization protections, specifically stated inabilities, 14th Amendment, they're not allowed to set up monopolies, all of those things. I want to change that. I want to bring the opportunity for the normal person to not only say, no, you can't make me, but if you make me and something bad happens, now I'm coming for you. 918-845-9555 is this cell phone number right here. I've been going 15 minutes. I'm going to try to keep it between 15 and 20. I've said it now a couple times. If I have no questions, that's fine. To recap, the Constitution limits the federal government. Federal government is not empowered the authority to regulate healthcare, so it shouldn't have all sorts of things going on in healthcare. But it does. We need to change that. Dobbs v. Jackson, that overturned Roe v. Wade, gives us the opportunity at the state level to assert state sovereignty, that 9th and 10th Amendment domain that basically covers everything the Constitution doesn't specifically state. As your state senator, the America First paradigm that I have, that I'm bringing, is that I'm going to identify the fact that the 14th Amendment doesn't allow monopolies to be sanctioned, and we want to go after the immunity that the federal government is, I argue, unconstitutionally providing companies that are producing something that is being put into the arms of people that may or may not be having adverse effects. The last thing I'll say here is the CDC's own data. The CDC's own data says right there, if you look down there at the bottom, total cases of that C word, 91,676,264. Total deaths, and this is just their numbers, I'm just using their numbers, this was updated just a few minutes ago. Their numbers, 1,027,370 deaths. Now, if you do that rough math, it comes down to this. Out of the CDC's own data, updated not even 10 minutes ago, the overall death rate is that 1.12%. 1.12% using the CDC's own data. So we're talking about something from a health freedom perspective, 1.12% using the CDC's data. 918-845-9555. Someone's asking me, do I plan to have a public debate with the opponent? I would love to. I don't think that... Well, I would love to. We'll just put it that way. Go ahead and put the pressure on the other side. Anytime, any place. Name the time. With that, I got 918-845-9555, 918-845-9555. I've been going 18 and a half minutes. My meet and greet. Meet and greet is August 11, right here. August 11, it's at the... August 11, right there. It's at the King Road Baptist Church, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's next Thursday. Today is Thursday, so it's a week from today. 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the King Road Baptist Church there just south of town in Claremore. You can meet me, shake my hand, talk about stuff, whatever you want. You can call me, text me anytime, 918-845-9555. May or may not answer. I'm on the phone a lot talking to people. So you can do that. Appreciate your time. If you support the campaign, could always use help right here. Every dollar donated goes to pushing this message to get me elected in this runoff. Oklahoma State Senate District number 2. The vote is on August 23rd. I ask for your vote. If you're on the fence, give me a call. If you hear things about me, give me a call. If you don't think that you're being told the truth, give me a call. If you think something about me and you're like, is that really true? Give me a call. Because there's a lot of people that will read and hear stuff on the internet. Probably not true. Especially whenever I'm saying, this phone right here is this phone number. This phone right here is this phone number. You could literally call a dude that's running for office whose name's on the ballot August 23rd. You have that opportunity. I don't know why you wouldn't take it. So whenever you start hearing the hit jobs and the media slur pieces, they're telling you who to vote for, by the way. Anyway, appreciate your time. God bless you. We'll talk again tomorrow, Lord willing, 7 p.m. In the evening. Tell your friends, invite other people. Please share this, especially if you live in district, if you support the candidacy. say, hey, give this guy a shot. Call him up. Hear him talk. I don't think anyone's bringing the perspective about using the Constitution and the opportunity for state sovereignty to go after Big Pharma, to further enshrine health freedom, and to protect against this type of stuff. I don't hear anyone talking about that. So if you want someone that's actually engaging the issues of the day, I'd appreciate your vote. My name's Jarrin Jackson. Until next time, Lord willing, we'll be here tomorrow at 7. Thank you for your time, and God bless you. Have a good night. Sleep well.